The cold sliced through the night air like a sharpened blade. Each breath the boy exhaled came out in frosted clouds, disappearing swiftly into the swirling darkness. The wind howled through the skeletal branches, rattling the brittle trees like a mournful chorus lost to the world. Beneath his feet, the frozen lake creaked faintly, fragile sheet of glass stretched thin, whispering dangers he barely understood. His boots crunched in the fresh snow, the sound swallowed almost instantly by the wind's relentless roar. He trudged forward, shoulders hunched, his every step weighted by more than just the heavy winter coat wrapped tight around him. The bitter cold wasn't the only chill settling deep in his bones. Loneliness clung to him like a second skin. In this stark, white wilderness, the boy felt swallowed by emptiness, a shadow lost in a vast, uncaring night. The frozen world pressed in from all sides, but what chilled him most was the silent ache inside, the feeling that no one was waiting for him anywhere. With the thin ice groaning faintly beneath him, he wondered how much longer he could keep, walking or holding on, since moving to this cold, unfamiliar town, the boy carried more than just the weight of his coat. His heart was heavy with the slow, crushing silence of a family unraveling. His parents' distant voices, arguments muffled behind closed doors, left him feeling adrift, a ghost in a place that should have been home. The faces around school were strangers, their smiles thin and fleeting, never quite reaching his eyes. Inside, a storm raged questions, spinning endlessly like snowflakes in the wind. Where did he belong? Could anyone see beyond the quiet sadness? Was there a place where he could be known, accepted? He wrestled with the gnawing loneliness that gnawed at his spirit, the isolation like a cold cage tightening with every passing day. Yet, somewhere beneath the frost, a fragile hope flickered, a silent promise that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he felt. Suddenly, the eerie quiet was broken by a faint, desperate noise, a soft, high-pitched whimper drifting over the frozen lake like a fragile thread in the wind. The boy's breath caught in his throat, his ears straining against the howl of the storm to catch the sound again. It was subtle, trembling with fear and pain, impossible to ignore. A sharp pang of curiosity stirred alongside a rising tide of unease. What was out there, trapped in this icy wasteland? His heart pounded faster, the loneliness momentarily replaced by a fierce urgency. The sound pulled him forward, deeper into the biting cold, where the fragile ice whispered warnings beneath. His careful steps, something was calling to him from the dark, and he knew this night was about to change everything. The world around him grew darker still as shadows stretched long and menacing through the swirling snow. The wind seemed to whisper secrets, carrying a warning that prickled at his skin. Every flake that danced in the pale moonlight felt like a frozen breath, a reminder of how fragile life was on this merciless night. His senses sharpened, every nerve alert to the shifting silence and the unknown dangers lurking just beyond sight. The cold wasn't just biting, it was threatening, pressing in like an invisible weight on his chest. The boy's pulse quickened, heart hammering in rhythm with the creaking ice. Somewhere in the stillness, something struggled, urgent, desperate, and so achingly close. The tension wrapped around him like the thick winter fog, thickening with every heartbeat. Then, a sudden movement, a dark shape flickered across the icy surface, a desperate flash of fur fighting against the fragile cracks. The boy's breath hitched, heart pounding louder than the storm itself. He froze, eyes wide, unable to look away from the struggling creature trapped on the thin ice. It was a dog, wild, scared, fighting for every moment on that treacherous frozen stage. The boy's loneliness faded, replaced by a surge of fierce protectiveness. In that instant, under the merciless winter night, two lives collided in silent understanding. Neither knew what the future held, but the bond had been forged, raw, urgent, and impossible to ignore. The night, cold and unforgiving, was about to witness a story of survival and unexpected companionship. The boy's breath hitched as his eyes locked onto the dark figure struggling on the ice. A German shepherd, large, strong, but now vulnerable, slipped through the fragile, frozen surface with a sickening crack. The ice betrayed the dog beneath, shattering in thin, jagged lines as the freezing water swallowed its legs. Panic flared in the dog's eyes, wild and desperate as it thrashed to stay afloat. Each frantic paddle stirred icy waves that lapped hungrily at the ragged edges of the broken ice. The boy's heart thundered in his chest, pounding louder than the howling wind. He could almost feel the cold water's cruel pull, threatening to drag the dog under with every failed attempt to climb back. Time stretched and blurred, the freezing air thick with urgency and fear. He could see the dog's wet fur clinging to trembling muscles, the sharp, ragged breaths escaping in desperate gasps. It was a fight for life, raw, brutal, and merciless, unfolding on the frozen stage beneath the swirling snow. The dog's paws scrabbled at the shattered ice, claws scraping against the slick surface, but the broken edges offered little purchase. Its body trembled violently, muscles weakening against the ruthless cold that seeped through its soaked coat. Every inch it gained came with exhausting effort, the sharp bite of the water sapping strength faster than the dog could recover. The shepherd's eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and terror, a silent scream echoing in the freezing night. It pushed forward with every ounce of will, fighting exhaustion that threatened to steal the fight from within. With a final, desperate lunge, the dog managed to claw up onto a narrow patch of solid ice, collapsing into a shivering heap. Its breath came in harsh, ragged pants, chest rising and falling like a fragile flame battling the wind. The boy watched, routed by a strange mixture of horror and awe. In the dog's struggle, he saw a raw, fierce will to survive a fight that mirrored his own silent battles in this cold, lonely world. The desperation between them bridged the distance, sparking a fragile connection neither fully understood yet. The boy's chest tightened with a surge of conflicting emotions. Shock slammed into him first, the sudden terrifying reality of what he'd just witnessed. Fear clawed at his resolve. The knowledge that the ice beneath his own feet was just as treacherous whispered warnings he couldn't ignore. Yet, beneath the swirl of panic, compassion bloomed like a fragile ember, burning fiercely despite the cold. He thought, can I really leave it here? The dog was fighting for life in a frozen prison, alone and desperate. His mind spun with questions and warnings, every instinct screaming for safety, but his heart urged him forward. The cruel cold pressed in on all sides, yet something deeper, something fierce and protective, reached through the fear. His breath trembled, eyes fixed on the shivering dog. The boy's hands clenched into fists, torn between the paralyzing threat of the ice and the raw need to help this struggling life. Compassion was stronger than fear now, a force pulling him closer to the fragile soul fighting against the night. His next move was a battle within itself. To step forward meant risking everything. The ice groaned underfoot, an unpredictable and treacherous ground that could give way in a heartbeat. Each second stretched like eternity as he weighed his own safety against the dog's desperate plight. The boy's heart was hammered with uncertainty. What if he fell in too? What if the ice cracked and swallowed them both? The fear of being trapped in that frozen abyss froze him momentarily, a chilling paralysis gripping his limbs. Yet, the dog's shivering form was a haunting beacon, a silent plea that shattered his hesitation. The risk was enormous, but the cost of doing nothing was far greater. His breath hitched, resolve hardening in the icy air. The boy knew he couldn't turn back now, not when the line between life and death was this thin. Then, like a distant light cutting through the storm, a memory sparked in his mind. That dog, the same one now trapped and shivering, wasn't just any stray. He had seen it before, a familiar figure roaming the neighborhood, a quiet guardian of the streets. Neighbors called her Luna, a gentle soul with bright eyes and a protective heart. Knowing that others loved this dog deepened the boy's empathy and fueled a newfound determination. She wasn't just a struggling animal. She was a part of a community, a friend to many, and deserving of every chance to live. The thought struck him sharply if he didn't act. Luna's absence would leave a silent hole not only in his life but in the lives of others who cared for her. The connection grew from stranger to urgent responsibility. He was no longer just a boy facing a frozen lake. He was a lifeline, a fragile hope in the brutal night. With careful breaths, the boy lowered himself to the ice's edge. Every step was deliberate, a whispered prayer to the fragile world beneath his feet. The ice groaned ominously, cracks spiderwebbing outward with every cautious move. The boy's heart pounded as adrenaline and fear danced together. Sharpening every sense, he forced himself to focus, one foot in front of the other, eyes fixed on the trembling dog just meters away. The snow whipped against his face, cold, stinging his skin, but he barely noticed. Time had narrowed into a single, urgent purpose. Reach Luna, save her from the merciless grasp of the ice and freezing water. His breath was shallow, voice barely a whisper as he murmured, "Hold on, ... I'm coming." The words were more promise than sound, a lifeline thrown across the void. Closer now. The dog's shivering form was raw and fragile, but alive. A flicker of trust glimmering in those wild eyes as the boy stepped into the unknown. Together, on this thin, treacherous stage, their fates had entwined. Every breath felt like fire as the boy gripped the dog's fur, pulling with all his strength. The ice beneath him cracked in protest, each movement an agonizing reminder of how fragile their situation was. The dog's body was slick with icy water, its shivering form barely able to hold itself together as it struggled to climb back onto the frozen surface. The boy's fingers, already stiff from the cold, felt as though they were burning from the effort, but he refused to let go. His arms ached, muscles screaming, but his will was stronger. Every moment of hesitation could be the one that sealed the dog's fate. With a final, desperate pull, the boy managed to lift the trembling shepherd's front legs onto the ice. The dog collapsed with a pitiful whimper, too exhausted to move. The boy's heart pounded in his chest tightening with every breath. He could feel the ice beneath his knees shifting dangerously, but there was no turning back. With a grunt of effort, he dragged the dog further onto the surface, inch by agonizing inch, until both of them were safely out of the water. The boy collapsed beside the dog, both of them gasping for air. His hands, raw and numb, trembled violently, but a strange sense of relief washed over him. He had saved her. He had saved a life. The dog's body shook uncontrollably, fur-soaked and shivering in the cold air. The boy didn't hesitate. He quickly removed his jacket, fumbling with his cold hands as he wrapped it around the trembling dog's body. He could feel the animal's ribs, sharp under the soaked fur, and the heavy weight of her exhaustion. He whispered softly, his voice a quiet assurance in the midst of the storm. "Hey, you're okay now. You're safe." The dog's fearful eyes flickered up at him, wide and uncertain. For a moment, the boy felt the full weight of the animal's vulnerability, a creature who had fought the very cold to survive and now lay shivering in his arms. He gently stroked her head, careful not to push too hard, offering warmth, comfort, and his presence. The boy spoke softly again, more to himself than to the dog. "I won't leave you." It was the first time he'd spoken with such certainty in a long while, as though the dog had opened a door in his heart that he hadn't known was closed. As the minutes passed, the dog's trembling slowed, the warmth of the boy's jacket and his gentle touch beginning to seep into her worn spirit. In that quiet moment, trust began to form, fragile but real. The dog's eyes softened, no longer filled with raw panic and distrust. There was still a trace of fear, a slight hesitation when the boy moved too quickly, but the tension between them slowly began to ease. Her shivering had subsided, replaced with a tentative stillness as she lay curled beside him. The boy dared to reach out again, slowly, his hand trembling slightly as he brushed his fingers through the dog's fur. The dog flinched at first, the instinct to protect herself flaring briefly, but then she stilled, sensing no danger. Her eyes met the boy's, a flicker of understanding passing between them. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't like the others who had left her, abandoned her in the cold. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dog shifted closer, her body inching toward the warmth he provided. The boy's heart swelled at the quiet acceptance, his hand continuing to stroke her fur with greater confidence. "It's okay," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." There, in the silent exchange of warmth and tenderness, a bond began to form. It was fragile, unspoken, but the trust that sparkled in the dog's eyes was unmistakable. The boy felt it, to a deep sense of connection, something he hadn't expected, but now couldn't ignore. The days passed in a blur of quiet care and gentle routines. The boy had taken to feeding the dog, now named Luna, the small portions he could spare. At first, she had been hesitant to eat, her fear holding her back from fully embracing the safety he offered. But as the days wore on, she began to eat with more trust, her strength slowly returning. Though she remained skittish and uncertain, the boy found solace in these small victories. Every moment spent grooming Luna's fur, every careful brushing that smoothed the knots and tangles of her once wild coat was a step toward healing. He would sit with her, telling her stories of the world outside, of his hopes and dreams, as if sharing them with her might help them both feel less alone. Luna, in turn, began to seek out his presence, sitting beside him in quiet companionship. She had come to depend on him, following him around the house, curling up near his feet at night, and offering the occasional nuzzle to his hand, as though silently reassuring him that they were in this together. For the boy, this bond was a revelation. Where once there had been only loneliness and isolation, there was now warmth, not just from the shelter of the jacket, but from something deeper. In Luna's growing trust, in the quiet moments of companionship, he found a sense of peace he hadn't realized he had been searching for. But even as Luna's body healed, the scars of her past remained. One evening, as the boy sat with her in the living room, a loud knock at the door startled them both. Luna's head whipped up, ears pinned back, her body stiffening with a low growl that sent a shiver down the boy's spine. She backed away, retreating into the corner as if trying to disappear. The boy stood, his heart sinking as he realized what was happening. Luna was trembling, her eyes wide with terror as the sound of the doorbell echoed in the still house. She was remembering the things she had endured before he had found her. The dog who had once been so grateful was now consumed with fear, the trauma of her past unraveling in front of him. "I'm here," the boy whispered, slowly approaching her. "It's just a sound, you're safe." But the fear in her eyes remained raw and untamed. The boy, too, felt the weight of doubt settle in his chest. Could he truly help her heal? Could he break through the layers of pain that still clung to her spirit? It was a question he couldn't answer yet, and the uncertainty gnawed at him, threatening the fragile hope they had begun to build. Then came the small moments that proved their bond was stronger than the fear. One morning, as the boy sat down to breakfast, Luna approached him, tail tucked nervously but still wagging, her eyes searching his face. She hesitated for a moment, as if unsure of what would happen next. Then, with a gentle bark, she nudged his hand, asking for attention. The boy smiled, laughter escaping his lips for the first time in days. It was a hesitant sound, but it felt good. Slowly, he reached out and scratched behind her ears, the soft fur beneath his fingers a reminder of the trust they had slowly built together. Luna's tail wagged more vigorously, a sign that she was finally beginning to find joy in simple things again. That night, Luna barked playfully at a shadow in the corner of the room, her confidence growing. The boy's heart soared at this small victory. It wasn't much, but it was everything. There, in the midst of the quiet moments, their friendship blossomed. The fragile peace that had settled between the boy and Luna shattered in an instant. One cold afternoon, as the boy returned from the market, a shadow loomed near the edge of town familiar, threatening. The dog's ears flattened, her body tensed, and her eyes darted wildly to the figure approaching, her former owner. The man whose cruel hands had once chained her spirit in fear. The air thickened with dread as Luna's trembling intensified, the trauma of her past flooding back like a relentless tide. She whimpered, pulling away from the boy's touch, retreating into herself with raw panic. The boy's heart clenched, helpless against the storm of memories that engulfed her. The man's cold gaze cut through the boy like a blade, his words sharp and unyielding as he demanded Luna's return. The dog's fear was a living thing, a fracture in the bond they had nurtured, shaking the very foundation of their fragile trust. In that moment, the boy understood the depth of Luna's scars. Not all wounds healed with time, and some battles were far from over. Overwhelmed by terror, Luna's survival instincts shattered, the trust painstakingly built. Before the boy could react, she bolted, vanishing into the biting wind and swirling snow, leaving only fading paw prints behind. The boy's breath caught, helpless and desperate. "Luna, wait," he called into the storm, voice breaking with anguish. She didn't stop. Each step he took toward her retreating figure felt heavier, the cold biting deeper as loneliness crashed over him. The boy was left clutching empty air, a heart split open by loss and fear. The storm swallowed her, the night masking her cries, and with every passing second, the boy's hope dimmed. His mind raced with doubt and regret. Had he failed her? Could their fragile bond survive this fracture? The world suddenly felt vast and merciless, and the boy was left alone, A boy against the cruel winter, desperate to bring back the lost warmth of trust. As the storm raged, with unforgiving fury, nature itself seemed to conspire against them. The boy, heart pounding, spotted Luna's shadow limping toward the frozen lake's edge. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed, the ice beneath them groaned, fracturing in jagged lines like shattered glass. The boy's breath froze in his chest as the ice gave way beneath Luna's paws. She struggled desperately, slipping into the icy water once again. Panic surged through him, the merciless cold threatening to claim her life as the frigid water pulled her under. Without hesitation, the boy lunged forward, heart torn between terror and fierce resolve. The frozen lake became a battlefield of survival, the threat of death closing in with every second. Their fragile bond, already tested, was now on the razor's edge, a fight not just against the cold, but against the cruel forces that threatened to tear them apart forever. Standing on the fragile ice's edge, the boy's mind screamed warnings, but his heart roared louder. The cold gnawed at his skin, the creaking ice beneath threatening to swallow him whole. The storm's howl was a cruel chorus, urging him to retreat, to choose safety over uncertain risk. But safety meant leaving Luna behind. The boy swallowed his fear, eyes locked on the struggling dog, and made the impossible choice. With trembling limbs and a courage born from love, he stepped onto the fractured ice. Each movement was a desperate prayer, a fragile hope that his strength would outlast the danger. "I won't leave you," he whispered fiercely, the words breaking through the storm's roar. It was a vow that carried them both forward, a silent promise that fear would not win this night. The ice cracked sharply beneath the boy's feet, water seeping through the fractures as he edged closer to Luna. She was fighting to keep her head above water, eyes wide with panic but still searching for him. The boy's hands, numb and trembling, reached out just in time to grasp her collar, pulling with every ounce of strength he had left. The cold burned through his gloves, seeping into his bones, but he refused to let go. Inch by agonizing inch, he dragged Luna towards safety, the ice threatening to give way at any moment. Every crack was a countdown, a reminder that time was running out. Behind them, the threatening figure of the former owner reappeared, shouting, and stepping closer, his presence a shadow darkening the rescue. The boy, fighting exhaustion and fear, stood firm, ready to protect Luna from any danger, human or nature. With one last heave, the boy pulled Luna onto solid ground. She collapsed beside him, panting and shivering, but alive. The boy met the owner's glare, voice steady and fierce. "She stays with me." Though weak, Luna found strength in the boy's courage. As the owner advanced, she rose unsteadily, fur bristling, teeth bared not in aggression but fierce loyalty. Her eyes locked on the boy, silently declaring she would stand by him, protect him as he had protected her. The man faltered, taken aback by the dog's unexpected bravery. Luna's stance was clear. This was no longer a frightened animal, but a partner who had found a home and a protector. She growled low, a warning that sent the man retreating into the cold shadows. The boy reached out, steadying her with a gentle hand. "We're together," he whispered. Luna's tail gave a weak wag, a sign that despite everything, their bond was unbreakable, forged in fear, strengthened by courage. As the storm's fury began to wane, the boy and Luna sat side by side, bodies pressed close for warmth and comfort. Fear had carved deep scars, but courage had stitched their souls together. In the quiet aftermath, Their eyes met two beings who had faced darkness and emerged bound by a fierce, unspoken love. The boy's trembling hands stroked Luna's fur, his voice soft with awe. We made it, together. No words could capture the depth of what they shared, a connection stronger than fear, more resilient than pain. In that moment, they were no longer just boys and dogs. They were family, warriors of survival, champions of hope. The storm passed, leaving a fragile calm in its wake, but scars both seen and unseen remained. Luna's fur was matted and cold, her eyes haunted by shadows that would take time to fade. The boy's hands bore cuts and bruises, and his spirit carried the heavy weight of the night's ordeal. Yet, in the quiet moments of recovery, their bond deepened. The trauma had tested them, stretched their limits, but it also revealed a strength neither had known they possessed. Together, they faced the lingering pain, leaning on each other for healing. The boy whispered promises of safety and unwavering loyalty, while Luna responded with gentle nudges and quiet companionship. Their journey was far from over, but the night had forged a bond that would endure, a testament to love's power to survive even the coldest storms. The furious howl of the storm had finally faded, replaced by a soft hush that settled over the world like a gentle breath. The boy and Luna lay close together on the snowy ground, their bodies pressed for warmth, hearts still pounding, but no longer gripped by terror. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, safety wrapped around them like a tender blanket. The boy's fingers traced lazy patterns over Luna's damp fur, steadying himself with the simple rhythm of her breathing. She rested her weary head against his chest, eyes half closed, trusting. In that quiet stillness, the boy felt a fragile peace bloom within. The fierce urgency replaced by calm. The chaos behind them, if only for a moment. It was in this shared silence, this small pocket of safety, that the boy and dog first truly understood they had survived together. Not just the storm outside, but the storms within their hearts. Days turned into weeks, and the transformation between boy and dog was undeniable. The boy's eyes, once clouded by loneliness and doubt, now gleamed with quiet confidence. He stood taller, spoke softer, but with stronger conviction, as if the bond with Luna had taught him how to carry his own burdens with grace. Luna, too, changed. The timid, fearful eyes softened into bright, joyful ones that searched for affection instead of fleeing from it. The shivering trembles that had once racked her body gave way to playful tail wags and eager, trusting glances. Where once she had flinched at sudden noises or strangers, she now met the world with a cautious but growing curiosity. Their companionship became a dance of mutual healing. Every step forward a victory against the shadows of their past. Together, they learned that trust was not given lightly but earned through patience, kindness, and unwavering presence. The cold winter days now held moments of warmth and laughter that had seemed impossible before. Morning walks became rituals. Luna trotting happily beside the boy, nose twitching at the sense of the earth beneath the thawing snow. The boy's laughter, once rare and fragile, now rang freely as they chased each other through frosted fields. Their footprints a tangled testament to a growing bond. Inside the small home, simple joys blossomed. Luna's playful barks, chasing after tossed balls, the boy's gentle hands rubbing behind her ears as she nuzzled him with soft affection. Even the quiet evenings, spent curled together near the fire, were filled with an unspoken gratitude for their shared survival. Each day was a building block of happiness, a slow but sure reclaiming of light from the shadows that had once threatened. to consume them. Their bond, once forged in fear and desperation, now blossomed into a source of joy and comfort neither had dared to imagine. Word of the boy and Luna's story spread quietly through the neighborhood, carried by kind smiles and open doors. Neighbors who once only glanced their way now stopped to greet them warmly, offering friendly pats and whispered words of encouragement. Children invited Luna to play. Adults shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs, bridging the boys. Isolation with threads of belonging. The boy felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crumble. The cold distance that had separated him from the world gave way to genuine connection. For the first time, he sensed that he wasn't just surviving, he was part of something larger, a community that accepted him and Luna not, despite their scars, but because of them. In that growing circle of friendship, both boy and dog found new roots, grounding them in a sense of safety, love, and the promise of tomorrow. The trials they had faced, the ice, the storm, the fear, and the loss were not just memories, but the very foundation of a bond deeper than words. Two wounded souls, each scarred by past pain, had found strength in one another. Their connection was forged in fire and frost, tempered by courage and tender care. The boy no longer felt alone in the world, and Luna no longer trembled in the dark. Together, they had built a sanctuary of trust and love, a silent promise that no matter what came next, they would face it side by side. This bond, born from survival, was their greatest victory, a testament to the resilience of the human-animal heart. As the sun dipped low behind the distant hills, casting the world in hues of gold and amber, the boy and Luna sat side by side on the frozen lake's edge. The winter chill was softened now, replaced by the warmth of companionship. Luna rested her head gently on the boy's knee, eyes half closed. In contentment, the boy reached down, fingers lightly tracing her fur, his heart swelling with quiet hope. "We're safe," he whispered, voice steady and full of promise. Together, the fading light painted their silhouettes against the vast sky, two souls, once lost, now found. In the stillness of the sunset, they sat not as boy and dog, but as family, ready to face whatever the future held, united by love, trust, and the unbreakable bond that had saved them both. In the end, it was compassion and courage that bridged the vast loneliness between two lost souls, a boy and a dog. Their kindness toward one another became a light in the darkness, breaking down the walls built by fear and pain. It was a quiet reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of bravery and empathy can change lives forever, weaving hearts together. Where despair once ruled, true trust was born not in strength alone, but in the fragile moments when both opened themselves to fear and pain. It was in those moments of vulnerability, the trembling hands, the uncertain eyes, that a deeper connection took root. Trust, they learned, is a gift earned when hearts dare to be seen and souls dare to be soft. Their journey was a testament to the power of second chances. Both scared, both seeking refuge, the boy and the dog found healing in the promise of new beginnings. Their story whispers a timeless truth. No matter the past, every heart deserves a chance to be loved and to belong again. Sometimes, the greatest strength is found in stepping beyond our own fears to help another. By risking everything for Luna, the boy discovered courage he didn't know he had, and in saving her, he saved himself. Their shared journey shows us that in the act of giving life and hope to others, we often find our own salvation.